Hello, everybody. My name's James. Welcome to another Planet FPL Clash of the Correspondents. And we've got two of our promoted correspondents joining us on this COTC episode. Firstly, let me introduce you to our Southampton correspondent. It's Matt Samuel. How are you, Matt?
I'm good, thanks. How about you, mate?
Yes, very well. Thank you, mate. Tired and also thrilled by Tottenham's astonishingly good performance. Can you get the sarcasm last night in victory at Coventry? But we're both through, Matt.
We
Maybe
are.
see you in round four because I don't think there'd be many other teams we'd be beating. And it is a clash of the correspondence debut for our Ipswich Town correspondent, Paul Gaught-Allen. How are you, Paul?
I'm well, James. How are you?
Yes, I'm well, thank you, mate. Matt, I feel like I'd proper tore into your team a little bit on Monday. What's the feeling on your start of the season? It is a little bit kind of UK and Eurovision at the moment.
Frustrating and disappointing. And I mean, I think you've hit the nail on the head with your pods. I don't think you've been wrong in any way. Uh, Defensively, just not good enough. Centre backs been making mistakes consistently from day one. So you saw at the Newcastle game, obviously it came from McCarthy. We've made that change, but we're still making mistakes at centre back. It's one of those that every game we seem to have a good 20-minute spell, and then we just completely capitulate. Like, United just gone. First 30 minutes, we were dominant, really enjoying the game. Missed the penalty, heads go. 3 minutes later, United score, and then it's essentially game over because we just let them run around, get another goal just before half time. And yeah, it's what it is. But obviously, we'll touch on it. But yeah, we've changed our style. That maybe has made us a little bit more attacking, but still really hasn't resolved the defensive issues. Changes in personnel, I think, might help, and that's obviously coming. But yeah, it's been, I think, largely frustrating, really.
Any confidence built from the cup win at Everton, or is it kind of irrelevant for the league at the moment?
Um, Maybe for some players, I think it was probably good for Harwood-Bellis. Obviously, he's kind of been dropped for Stevens, and then Stevens had one of his usual moments that's seen him sent off. I expect he'll probably miss 3 games, but then we've also got till the end of today to appeal because he's been charged for verbally abusing the referee on top of his sending off.
Oh, right, so he could get
Yep.
more.
So he could get more games. Yeah. And
Right.
given captaincy and all that, that's not really what you're going to want to see from your
Yeah.
club captain. But I mean, it could be 5 games. So I think Harwood-Bellis largely played very well against Everton. Someone like Ugachukwu, it's good to see him. He looks a solid asset. But give him a bit more run of games. Obviously, Fernandez came on at half time. I think it's just getting minutes in these guys' legs and getting them used to the system. But you saw against United, we made, I think it was 5 or 6 changes, and it was needed because it's about time we started to bed in these signings.
So should we not judge the 4 games? Should we just judge what we've seen against Manchester United so far, basically?
Yeah, I mean, for the first 3 games, it was 5-3-2, but the two forwards were so wide that there was no one through the middle,
Playing on
and it was
different football pitches, mate.
yeah, exactly. And it was only in the last 20 minutes when we then changed it and brought in, say, Archer, Dibbling, and we moved to the kind of 4-2-3-1 system that kind of became a bit more attacking kind of threat. But by then the games were gone. So he's seen that, gone to United, dominant from the start, which is what we don't necessarily do constantly. But yeah, just through lack of experience, people have just lost their heads once we missed the penalty.
Paul, if I can bring you in on Southampton, I presume you're fairly familiar. As obviously, you both went up together last year. What's your thoughts on them and their start?
Um, Last season, and Matt will correct me if I'm wrong, it felt like at the start of the season, they were heavy possession side, and then that changed. I don't know exactly when, second half of the season. And I watched them on Saturday against Man United, and I didn't really know which one of those they were, but maybe that's the opposition. Maybe they were a little bit more, well, this is Manchester United, albeit at home. We're going to be a little bit more cagey. But I didn't know which of those two they were. But the talk before that was they kind of got back to the style from the first half of last season, which didn't seem to suit them as well. I don't know if Matt agrees or if that's kind of
Yeah,
like basically on two performances I saw against Ipswich last year.
we kind of saw it beginning of this season, against like Newcastle, for instance. We were again very possession based, but we don't create anything from that possession. And you're right, kind of Martin changed his style as we got closer to the playoffs last season, because I don't think we would have got promoted had we not. We need to maybe find a bit of a happy medium between the two. So I think we tried to implement that against Everton, for instance, where we'll still play out from the back. But if we are in trouble, I do think we'll see Ramsdale potentially just get rid of it. And that may help him because obviously we've seen previously with Arsenal, he's been caught out. So it's that kind of adaptation without completely losing Martin's philosophy.
Only one team's had more possession than you so far, Matt. It's quite striking for a promoted team. And I realised the 10 men against Newcastle was an influence on that. But then also the fact that I think you didn't end up with the majority of the possession against Manchester United is down to your own red card and the circumstance of the match at the end as well. 62% average possession includes games against 2 of the so-called top 8, a fixture at Brentford as well. Nottingham Forest would expect you to have a lot of ball, fair enough. But you look at that, it's impressive to come into our league and still maintain that. But I've watched quite a bit of your games, and you can't help but think that it's great, but it's not going anywhere. Yeah. And that was my criticism, on the piece I did from the Newcastle game, where I looked at the first half hour, it was 11v11. It's like, if there's a criticism, it's like the control's fine, but it's not leading to anything.
Yep. Agreed. Yeah, and I think you'll probably see, obviously, the first half an hour against United, those changes. I mean, Tyler Dibbling, for instance, I think he's a huge asset, and you're going to see more of him this season. But I think he gives something extra, so we could potentially have that possession for the first 2/3 of the pitch, but we've now potentially got players in wide positions and maybe a target man in the middle that can create those chances. Whereas we just weren't getting that with having Diaz and Armstrong effectively, like you said, playing on 2 different football pitches.
Okay. Paul, what you made of your start? 2 points feels fair from what you've had so far.
Yeah, really, pretty promising. You kind of write off Liverpool, even though it's at home. You certainly write off Man City away. Anything from those is a complete bonus.
Your away end didn't when you went 1-0 up, mate.
No, we didn't write it off at that moment, I'll be honest. But then, Fulham at home, Brighton away obviously is a tricky game as well. So to get 2 points from those two, pretty promising. But what comes in the next, whatever we're talking, 6, 8, 10 games, where we're now thinking, right, we need to pick up some wins now. That's the real quiz. We need to pick up some points.
Does it feel like for you it starts now? Like for Matt, I think it already feels like it started. Does it almost feel like for you it starts now?
There's a little bit of that. With all the new signings, maybe it was last week because that was after the international break and after the window had closed. But it does feel like now we're into the right. If we're plotting to get to 36, 38 points, we're going to have to pick up a good chunk of those in the next however many weeks it is.
Okay. You're at the other end of the possession spectrum. And I don't know how to equate this yet because you played Liverpool and Manchester City. And I guess Brighton as well. We'd expect you to be quite low, 35.8% possession so far this season. Is that a reflection of what you are as a team or not?
I think it's a reflection of what will be away from home and possibly at home against those top 4, 5, 6 teams, which will be a team that plays on the counter. And I think a good way of, for most people, of equating this is when Man United had their good spell under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, they played a lot of teams that were better than them, and they played on the break, and they were very successful. They beat PSG and teams like that. And the mastermind for that is our manager now. So I would see, away from home, like we did at Brighton last week, and like we tried to do maybe against Liverpool and against Manchester City, we would be looking for those breaks. And I think the Brighton game was a good example. We did play deep. We didn't have the click to turn that counter-attack into good possession and into good chances, although we had 1 or 2. And that's probably what we'd be working on this week, would be my guess.
Yeah, so I guess we're including Southampton at the moment as one of these teams that you'll play where you're not going to have a lot of ball, right? Because of them and because of you.
Yeah, well, we didn't last year in the 2 games from memory. Certainly in the first one, We watched you pass it in front of us most of the game, as I remember.
Yeah.
The second game was a little bit different. The second game was just crazy.
I,
The first game
I
was
just
very
looking,
much.
Paul. You won both fixtures last season. 1-0 at St Mary's. I just looked. You had 41% of the ball, and actually in the chaotic 3-2 win, which I think was in April, you had 35% of the ball, Paul, even though it was at home.
Yeah, it didn't. It felt like the other way round to me, as a fan watching. But in that second game, which is most recent, so probably most relevant, even though it was at our stadium, for 60 minutes, Southampton were clearly the better team, and they were 2-1 up. But then things change, and Ipswich do come on strong late in games, as Southampton found that night, for whatever reason that is. But McKenna changed things. Russell Martin changed things possibly negatively. Took off Aribo and the other Armstrong, Stuart Armstrong,
Yeah,
who I thought were running the game at that point.
Yep.
And suddenly, the whole thing went crackers. Frankly, it was a ridiculous last 20 minutes. I don't know. It's a long time since I've seen football like that, to be honest.
We read anything into those 2 wins from last year, or are you so much changed in terms of personnel, Paul, that we should ignore it?
I don't think we read into it. Oh, we beat them twice. We should beat them again. I think what you can read into it is more from the Southampton side. I suspect they will have 60-65% possession. It's what they do with it that is the key thing there. And then on our flip side, it's what we do with our transition play, whether we can get that passing pattern sorted so that we can go through them as easily as we went through a couple of times last season.
You want to change, Matt? Like, we're looking at the fixture now this weekend. We're pretty much, you're going to have 2/3 of the ball. Pretty much all in agreement with that. Do you want to change, though? Are you happy with that?
Yeah.
Because realistic, I think if you say to most football fans, you're going to have 2/3 of the ball. We recognise that as a team's really going to kind of dominate the game. For example, we've just seen the North London derby, an example that possession isn't necessarily going to mean to better chances or anything like that. So do you, in your situation, are you looking for something now we like, okay, this is how we play, this is the philosophy, I'm happy with it? Or do you as a fan want change, particularly looking at the league table at the moment?
Had you asked me that question after the first 3 games, the answer would have been yes, and that would have been more system orientated. I think now the answer would probably be no, because I'm hoping that we've stumbled potentially on a way after the first 3 results of going, okay, well, we need to change the system to try and, get forward a little bit more, come away from the system that we were using for the last 4 or 5 games of last season throughout the playoffs, but still retain that kind of possession-based football where you do try to still look to break the lines rather than forcing the pass. And I mean, you analysed obviously the Newcastle game. There was a couple of moments there where you split 3 kind of Newcastle midfielders and through, and we've seen that in every game so far. We do have players that can play very good defence splitting footballs, but it's having the person on the end of those balls and then the option once you get it wide potentially to cut in. I'm hoping that first half an hour at Man United doesn't go amiss because, the result wasn't what we wanted, but it does show that we can play that way and play it well.
Does the team suffer badly from setbacks?
Yes. And that's always...
I'm obviously alluding to the Archer penalty here because it's like you could split the game in half from there.
Yeah. 100%.
Why is that?
I don't know. It's a bit of naivety. More of a case of me dog's fucking. More of a case of kind of a little bit of an experience. So you've got someone like Jack Stevens. Fair enough. He's a good player when he wants to be, but he really struggles if he makes a mistake. It gets to him. We've saw that with Harwoord-Bellis. It's a real step up. Kind of, he was the one pulled off a couple of times, and we just don't seem to have those leaders on the pitch, which has become a big problem.
Okay. Paul, bookies have got you evens to stay up now. Essentially 50-50. that feels very different to, I think, what the pre-season expectation had been. I think the investment in the squad has changed a lot of people's opinions, and I think it's probably flipped with going into pre-season. I think because Southampton and Leicester would have been established Premier League years over the teams over the last 2 decades, whereas you haven't. It was sort of almost a submission of you. I think most people will probably finish bottom. But of the three of you, the bookies that give you the best chance of the three of staying up now. And there's a caveat to that in the sense that we know Leicester obviously could still get points deduction once their next financial results come out. But is that right? That you're the best place of the three promoted teams now?
Well, bookies aren't normally wrong. They make more money than they pay out, don't they? I I don't know. It's difficult to be neutral on that, but I do think of the three teams that came up, we finished higher than Southampton last year. Sorry, Matt. And, we made greater investment than Leicester and I think Southampton in our squad. So I felt like of the three, yes, I thought we probably might be in the best place, very close to cool. And we've got Kieran McKenna, who I think is a better manager than either of the two. Although I think Steve Cooper's a good manager, but yeah, I think Kieran McKenna's the best of the three.
Paul, we're digging here.
Well, I mean, I'm not going to say something praiseworthy of work.
I'm not going to not follow that up and say, what do you really think about Russell Martin, mate?
Well, he's from up the road, isn't he? So I'm not allowed to like him.
Oh, okay. So there was a Norwich link here too.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Do you actually rate him as a football manager, or do you just refuse to because he played for Norwich?
Bit of both. I think I kind of understand what Matt's getting at in the way that I think I'd find it quite frustrating. Certainly the first game that I watched last year, I came away thinking, if I was a Southampton fan, I'd be really annoyed with my team because, I said they just passed it in front of us. And that's what they did. They didn't look at all threatening at all. And when I saw them at the end of the season, I was like, no, that's a good team. That's a proper team. They're doing, they're mixing up a bit. They're not just passing front. And that's why I was intrigued to see, some of the reports that they seem to be going back to what I'd call their bad ways, Possession's not a bad thing, but, there's good possession and bad possession.
Okay. Matt, thoughts on Ipswich?
Yeah, no, I like them as a team, given where they've, obviously they've come from. And McKenna, I think, is a top quality manager. He really kind of gets the game. And I mean, Paul, you probably will accept it that I think he'll move on in a couple of years' time to a bigger and better club potentially, because he's definitely got the talent there to take someone like, say, a Brighton, for instance, forward. And there's only so much you can potentially do with clubs like ourselves. I put ourselves in that bracket as well. If Martin was to have a fantastic, say we stay up and Martin has a great season next season, we've seen with someone like Vincent Kompany from Burnley, the opportunity is there if you play a particular style, and it's not necessarily about the performances of the team; it's about the manager's philosophy. And I think McKenna is very good.
I'm pleased you mentioned Vincent Kompany, because to take it back to Russell Martin, I mentioned Vincent Kompany in reference to him a few weeks ago in terms of, look, you stick to your philosophy,
Yep.
even if it goes wrong. There's a proof there that, I mean, I don't suppose Russell Martin's going to walk into the Bayern Munich job, and obviously Kompany's playing career has obviously helped with that sort of thing. But it doesn't mean that an established mid-table Premier League club this time next year maybe might not look at Russell Martin if you've gone down, for example. Yep. Is that a sticking point where you think that he might get determined because of you've seen the reward of what's happened with another manager?
Yes, but I get it, because if a manager consistently changes his tactics, then it almost feels like he doesn't know what style of football he wants to play. And then you obviously get varying results. It's not necessarily down to the manager at that point, then it could be down to luck. Whereas if you can prove that you can continually play a style of football, and even if you improve as a team but still don't get the results, it shows that the manager's philosophy is then being implemented. And I'd get that from that perspective. I wouldn't want to give up my principles, because you've got to think about your own career as well at the end of the day. And they're both, Martin and McKenna, they're still young managers when it comes to some of the more experienced in the game.
Do we assume the back four sticks for you now, Matt?
Yes, yeah, I can see it being, yeah, but I don't think we'll go back to back five.
Arsenal away in 7, City away in 9.
We might see a change given the type of football that they play, but even then, it may well be that we stick with the 4 because even with a 5, we won't. If we go with a 5, we won't create any chances and we'll play for a draw. And as soon as we concede, which we inevitably will, we'll have to change it because you can't chase a game with a back 5. So yeah, I can potentially see us sticking with the 4, and it will be more of the 4 than the 2 kind of pivots, the 6s, and say Downs and hopefully Ogachukwu kind of is that kind of holding pair, whereas you don't get that if you play a back 5.
Okay. Paul, have we seen anything specifically different from Ipswich to what we'd have expected in pre-season in terms of a system?
Not really. I think we've seen basically the shape that we played 4-2-3-1 out of possession. We've seen a little bit more pragmatism, particularly away. We've not really played a low block before that I remember too much, and we played that a couple of times already. But even at Manchester City, although it looked like we played 5 at the back because we had Ben Johnson, he actually played a kind of weird right-hand side of midfield, kind of moving inside, moving outside kind of position that kind of made it still look like we had a back 4. But so I suspect we'll still play the back 4 and we'll keep with that now. Certainly for the next 10 or so.
Noticeable that Wes Burns comes straight back in at the weekend.
Yeah.
That helps with the balance of pushing Davis on the left-hand side, I presume.
It does. And although Ogbene, who we signed from Luton, is as near to a carbon copy as you can get of Wes Burns, probably, Wes Burns knows our patterns of play. He knows what to do, when to do it. So yeah, he was put straight back in, and that was really interesting because I didn't think he'd do that, but yes, straight in.
Okay, I think that leads into the fantasy topics. Let's start with Davis, Paul. Going to get a little bit of attention. Returned in the last 2. Not a typical Leif Davis assist against Fulham, but it goes in the bank and people will forget about it. Is he worth paying more than your 4.0 options at the moment?
The boring answer, but it probably depends on your team structure and what else you've got.
What
who else?
a bottle job. First COTC, honestly.
But I like Davis, and I've got him in my team. So yes, I think he's worth the extra. But I also think that I don't know that there's many better 4.0 defenders than Jacob Greaves in the game right now. So maybe, if you want to go there, then maybe you'd go for a different 4.5.
Okay. Let's talk about the 4.0s briefly. There'd be people who are on Ben Johnson. I realise that people can just leave it on the bench, but I guess that surprised us, right? That Twanzebe is basically playing ahead of him at the moment.
Yeah, that did surprise me. I'll be totally honest. I can't lie about that. It's all on tape now. But
we don't have a VHS collection, by the way, mate. Just stay in the cloud somewhere.
All of Paul's errors. There'll be lots of tapes there.
Oh, I've got a file for all of you lot.
But yeah, I was surprised because Twanzebe played right back at the end of last season, but it felt makeshift because Harry Clark was injured. And then we got Ben Johnson in, and you go, okay, we've got Ben Johnson play right back. Harry Clark's the backup, although he's injured. Twanzebe will play centre-back, where he's been mainly seen as a centre-back in his career. But he played that first game against Liverpool, and I was a bit surprised, but he's played really well. So I think that will stick until he doesn't play well. But yeah, so far he's been one of our players of the season, frankly. So yes, he'll play.
What was the reason for Luke Wolfenden missing out at the weekend?
I think McKenna has decided that's basically his back 4.
So with Dara O'Shea in now.
Yeah, I think he's spent 12 million on O'Shea or whatever it was. He's going to play him, and he wanted him to get up to speed. Not quite in the same way that we talked in the previous pod about Liverpool, Man City being free hits as such, but he thought it was longer term better just to get his back four there and playing. So I think Luke Wolfenden, he might play in particular games, kind of like tactically that suit him. Maybe if they have got a big target man, we might prefer Wolfenden over Dara O'Shea, but I think that's the back four now. No doubt he'll pull something out of his backside on Saturday now.
If you're, I mean, there's people going to wild card. I think there's a lot of people intending to wild card next week. There's now a few people, but particularly a few forward issues, are probably going to get brought forward to this week. So if you're looking at an Ipswich defender at 4.0, is there any case to go O'Shea over Greaves now at this stage? Because O'Shea picked up the bonus point at the weekend as well.
Yeah, I'd still go Greaves because I think he is more of a definite starter. I'm not going to use the word nailed. He's more of a definite starter than O'Shea for me.
Please don't use the word nailed or essential or expert on this podcast. So for you, Greaves at a 4.0 still.
Yeah.
How do you rate Greaves versus other 4.0 options across the other clubs?
I would say the main ones, Mascara from Wolves is quite interesting, but obviously their fixtures are quite tough until
game week 10-ish.
Yeah. So I'd probably have him if there's a better one. I'm not aware of him right now, but I'd have him ahead of Harwoord-Bellis. I'd have him kind of like probably ahead of Mascara just on fixtures. On the Brentford guy, but I'm not sure he's definitely going to play.
Van den Berg. Well, I've said this with Van den Berg. Like, he'll probably play at Tottenham at the weekend, but I don't know if that gives us the answer for afterwards. And for those wild carding on 6, if he started 2 games in a row and then they've got that brilliant fixture swing, people are going to go there. Just because I would, even if I didn't know he was going to play, I'd be more gutted if I didn't take it, I think.
Yeah.
So I think that's where the lean will be next week. But I could see more of a case, particularly as well if people going in this week. People probably haven't learned their lessons about benching Arsenal centre-backs, but I do get it away to Manchester City. You might look at it and go, well, if I do invest in either of these clubs, I might pay my 4.0 Southampton or Ipswich defender rather than a player from one of the teams that might win the league. So, Matt, Taylor Harwood-Bellis owners, it's good news or not?
I'd say it's good news, yeah, because if he can look like he was last season, during that 25-game unbeaten run, it was Harwood-Bellis and Bednarak were the 2 centre-backs. And then it was when we started to try and bring Stevens in and find a position for him in the first 11 that things kind of fell apart. And that was more, I think, Martin realising that, he wasn't able to play as club captain after injury, etc. But yeah, I'm hopeful that Harwood-Bellis will take this chance, and fingers crossed, I'd like to see that as the centre-back pairing. I mean, we've obviously got Bella Kotchup, but it sounds like I have no idea what's going on there. I believe he's our best centre-back, but
I was just going to say, is he not the best centre-back at the club? This is a player who's been in the Germany squad.
Yeah, comfortably our best centre-back, but for whatever reason's gone on behind the scenes, obviously we tried to get rid of him in the summer. Yeah, he's registered. Him and Onuachu have squad numbers.
Is it his ability to play out? Is that what the question is here, or?
I think there was an attitude issue because he didn't want to play with us in the Championship, and Martin has taken issue with that. He's obviously come back. He released like an Instagram post yesterday saying, "Don't believe everything you have in the media," and then he put like up the Saints and all that. So it sounds like he's realised he is with us until at least January. But for him to not even be in the squad for the cup game against Everton says a lot, really. Yeah. Whereas he played the previous League Cup game, but I think that was more us saying, "Look, he's fit. Come and get him." For the the likes of the Turkish clubs. So it was a really weird.
You cup tied him, Matt.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's an odd one, but for what we've got, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't make the connection there. Obviously, with Stephen's suspension, which you're obviously technically is 3 games, of which one's been served because the cup game just gone. But I didn't. So it's at least 2 games that he'll miss. You're saying that might get raised. I didn't make the connection of, well, of course, Bella Kotchup won't come back if he's not been involved at Everton in the Carabao Cup. Surely there's no way you just save him and go, you're back in the team this weekend, is there?
No chance.
No. So Harwood-Bellis, actually, I mean, as it actually stands now, despite not starting the last game, he's a certain starter this week, isn't he?
I'd say, yeah. I'll use the 99%.
See, I didn't use that word there, Paul.
Yeah.
And Matt didn't say 100%.
Yeah.
Just so you know, he might get sick the night before or something like that. Okay, so it's Bednarek, Harwood-Bellis. I guess if it's back four now with Sugawara, Walker Peters, it's pretty settled.
Yeah.
If someone wanted to wildcard and go, I guess it's Bednarek or Harwood-Bellis at this stage.
Yep.
Do people go Bednarek because they may be a bit spooked about Harwood-Bellis once Stevens comes back?
It's a difficult one because Bednarek will consistently play, whereas you could see Harwood-Bellis could have a drop off again. However, Harwood-Bellis from set pieces, as we saw against Everton, has always been more prolific. He has a tendency to get himself up there, particularly from corners from the edge of the area, or even from like the kind of indirect free kicks. It's kind of his game, and he seems to enjoy that. He scored a couple, I think, during pre-season, and he had a couple last season as well. So it's more of a case of if you want the potential that you might get a 4.0 Saints defender that could get 3-4 goals this season, potentially. But if you want the consistency of minutes, then Bednarek.
Okay. To close on the 4.0s, I'll ask you, Matt, Harwood-Bellis or Greaves?
Greaves.
Okay. I think that concludes that debate. Your Southampton 4.0 defenders are not of interest to me based on what I've seen so far, Matt. However, there are two players in your squad that very much are. And I think pretty much any content creator that had done a little bit of research on Southampton this summer was tweeting about it as soon as they saw the team at the weekend. Tyler Dibbling right now might be the best 4.5 million midfielder in the game. Is that fair, Matt?
Yeah. He's an unbelievable talent, and Martin has admitted that he should have brought him into the starting lineup earlier. He kind of went for the, oh, well, you guys did well last season. I'll give you a run of games to try and prove yourself in the Premier League. Realised after the third game that that's not quite right. Dibbling, every time he came on, looked good. He was exceptional in pre-season. And I think he was our best player on the pitch against Man United. So, yeah, this Dibbling, we'll be lucky if we keep him for a season. I honestly expect him to potentially go next summer if he keeps performing the way he does. Although he did move to Chelsea 2 seasons ago for a month, and then basically said that he wasn't enjoying it, agreed to terminate his contract at Chelsea as a youth player, and came back.
Wow.
Yep.
That's interesting. I thought these young players just went to Chelsea to be abused of their future careers and not play football anymore. Maybe he got the training and I couldn't get him on the pitch about canceling get back.
Possibly, yeah.
I never knew that. It's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Is he a proper Southampton boy then, or?
Yeah.
Okay, we never know. Might hang around longer, mate. Therefore, how assured would you be of his minutes moving forward? I guess in terms of his attacking potential, it's a little bit like what I spoke about with Lucas Bergvall in pre-season. It's like, I want the player that could be something.
Yep.
And Dibbling certainly falls into that, but people will stress about the minutes.
Yeah, it will be a consistent, if he starts 60 to 70, I'd say, because we've got the likes of Maxwell Cornet now that is pretty solid backup. He's not going to flog him because we've made that mistake with a few, Romeo Lavia, for instance. We flogged him for the first 2 months of the season, never played again for us, and then moved to Chelsea. We've done the same with other young talent within the squad. So I think Martin's going to be careful, but also realizes that we probably need him if we're going to try and get something from a game early on.
Yeah, and look, he has featured in all the games so far.
Yep.
I realised that was obviously his first start at the weekend. Have you wildcarded, Matt?
Yeah.
You have. Is he in?
No.
If you had the opportunity to do it again, would he be in?
Depends on the structure.
I get it. Let's say you're going with 3 Haalands up front.
Yes. Yeah, 100%. I've got the other 4.5. Ross Stewart is my 4.5 kind of player, is my 8th attacker.
I might buy him this week, Matt.
What, Dibbling?
No.
Oh, Stewart. Yeah.
Start shoving the money. Everyone's got forward problems. I'm not sure I love any of them. Hold on a minute. Let's just go 2 up front here and start moving the money.
That's exactly
why did he come on ahead of Armstrong at the weekend?
Because Martin has always rated Stewart. Obviously, I made the comment in the summer that he's made of glass, and he is. Inevitably, at some point, he may pick up another injury, and I don't think he's ever been the same since he had the horrendous Achilles injury with Sunderland, which is the only reason we got him for 8 million when we got him. But he is a talent, and Martin sees him potentially as our best front man, our number 9. I'd say even ahead of Archer, but he needs to build up minutes slowly rather than coming in initially from the start. So we've seen that, he got 20, 30 minutes against United. It was exactly the same against Everton. You may well have expected him to, kind of start the Everton game. I don't think he's quite there yet. So it may well still be Archer through the middle, 60, 70 minutes in, Stewart. But eventually I expect him to be the starting forward if he stays fit.
That's big because I think he's been attracting a little bit of attention. And I think people have been looking at it and going, well, that's the only 4.5 that's had any minutes so far. And obviously he's just come back from injury. So great. He's back in the squad. What you're saying is actually he could become the starter here.
Yep.
Yeah. For someone who hasn't got Haaland, I need to really think about this. Because that's going to find me the most money of all, isn't it? If I go towards Stewart. So yeah, I'm tempted. But do you think he would start this weekend?
No, I still think it will be Archer.
So you wouldn't be. I'm just trying to think of an example. You wouldn't be tempted to pick him over, an Arsenal player at Man City, for example.
Maybe. So I've got the same debate because at the moment he's first on my bench. But what I'm thinking is the potential is there for him to come on for half an hour. If he gets 1 point, for instance, that may well match an Arsenal player. Or, if he gets an assist, it could well beat within 20 minutes. It's whether you want to take that risk in the aspect that the Arsenal player might not do anything, but Stewart might only get 15, 20 minutes. But he could still do something in those 15, 20 minutes.
I mean, it's a 4.5 million forward. If he's going to get the odd minutes, kind of like perfect anyway. I just leave him. If he's going to be a sub, he sits at the back.
Yeah.
And if he's going to play regularly, then I could start thinking of playing him.
Yep.
I just would need someone to actually create chances for him, Matt, that he might be able to finish. Paul, I'm going to guess you're familiar, I'm going to guess, with Stewart particularly as well. What do you think of him as a player?
I'm only a little bit familiar with him, I'll be honest. But I think Matt's right. He was better before that injury, and we've not seen enough of him since to know if he's still got it, because he's not had a run of games. And Matt is right. They need to introduce him gradually. He was one I had a little circle around at the start of the year going, oh, if they keep, just nudging his minutes up and then suddenly, maybe around this like October international break, he starts just before or he comes back strong afterwards. That might be the time, if I was wildcarding around then, that he might be in. But he can play. Don't worry about that. But never seen it at Premier League level, obviously.
No, of course not. And I think it's important to stress the injury record and what you've both said there as well. What does this mean for those who are on Armstrong, Matt? It's just absolute sell, is it? Or
yeah, I mean, he didn't even get on, obviously, against United, which was a huge tell. I think, I mean,
it's not like he can't do a job for the team in a wide area, even, right? Because you kind of funneled in after the red card and stuff.
Yeah, it's a tricky one because, I mean, he was obviously exceptional last season, but he does seem to really struggle at this level. And obviously, we saw it 2 seasons ago, similarly, when the expectation was Armstrong could be the player that steps up. And even against Everton for the first half, his heat map was atrocious. It was about 30, 40 yards outside of the area for most of it. Yeah, I just don't know if I don't think he's attacking enough on the wings to be, say, one of the wide players in a 3 behind the forward. But at the same time, I think he really struggles as a number 9, which is why he really worked as, say, that kind of left-sided forward for us last season. But this system kind of doesn't really fit that. So it's a bit of an odd one. I wouldn't be keeping him. If you're going to have one of those 5.5s, it'll be Brereton Diaz for now, albeit I've still not particularly been impressed with him either.
What should Diaz owners do?
You probably keep for now, despite the fact that obviously, well, I mean, he's dropped in price anyway. He's 5.4 now. But yeah, I'd say keep, because it does seem like Martin is trying to give him the run of games on the left-hand side there. This system might suit him a little bit better. You saw against Everton, he had a moment. He should have done a lot better with his chance, but he kind of broke through from the left. We've seen him cut in. He obviously scored that goal against Sheffield United as well. So he's got it in him. It's just he seems like a bit of a confidence player. And yeah, again, 67 minutes in against United, you saw him come off for Fraser. So
Okay. I'm going to play a process of elimination game with you, Matt, if I can.
Go
Your
for
whole
it.
squad is on the pitch at the weekend. You get a penalty. Who takes it?
Diaz or Armstrong.
Not Archer.
No.
Your face. Are you annoyed about that whole thing?
Yeah, and I think Martin was pissed off as well because he said in his presser afterwards that he made the mistake because Archer was there, obviously, during the international break training. Diaz wasn't, so he designated Archer as the penalty taker for the game. And given Archer has never taken a professional penalty, and Diaz has taken, I think, 7 professionally within the league and scored 7, we should have, gone that way. So
It's odd, mate.
I also think it was maybe more of a, if we get a pen, Archer needs the confidence.
Yeah, I mean, that's how I felt it was. Get him up and running.
And
Yeah.
you saw how much his head dropped when he missed it. He wasn't in the game at all from that point until he got subbed off. Whereas I think for the first 30 minutes, he played pretty well.
Okay. Do you think Archer starts this weekend?
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
I think it'll kill him if we take him out entirely.
Yeah, I get that. Okay. And there's a chance here to put it right in this fixture, no doubt. So Diaz for you, probably.
Yep.
If Diaz didn't play,
Judging by the penalties against Everton, someone like Fernandez can take a penalty.
okay. I'm trying to lean here, Matt, to see if you're going to tell me the 4.5 forward might also take penalties.
He could well do. He obviously took a pen and scored against Everton in the penalty shootout. If he's the number 9, I expect he would want the ball, but we don't know that for certain.
Are we to assume here, Matt, that because of Stewart, Archer's not an option, and because of Dibbling, Fernandez is not an option?
Yeah.
Okay. Fairly straightforward. Paul, what do you fancy most of Ipswich's attacking talent? I'm sure you've got a few of them, haven't you, mate? Or are you on triple defence at the moment, are you?
No. I've got Hutchinson at the minute in my team, and I think that that is going to stay. I think anybody who's got Delap, I think should keep. I think he's doing well. I said pre-season that I thought George Hurst was probably first choice from having seen a couple of pre-season matches. I think Delap's probably a little bit ahead of him. We will definitely see this when they're both fit, 60-30 split. That's what McKenna does if he can. But he's strong and he's quick enough. He might get the odd yellow card. He's a bit rough and tumble when he wants to be, but yeah, I think he's definitely worth keeping if you've got him. And if you're looking on a wild card, that's a pretty good price point for him. I'm not so keen on Schmodix. I think that's a notch too high at 6. I'd go for Hutchinson or Burns personally.
To come back to Delap, if he's potentially going to pick up the odd yellow cards, is the odd chance he's going to pick up the odd 0, isn't there? Based on what you're saying, a 60-30 split. He's come off 58 minutes at the weekend, despite obviously Hurst only just coming back to fitness. Delap, I think, has probably impressed on the eye over the last 2 games. Many of us would have seen the brilliant run he had at Brighton, would have been an astonishing goal. But there's people looking for forwards at that bracket at the moment. And just a little bit more is your Vardys, your Calvert-Lewins, your Woods. You feel a lot more secure of, basically at the moment, of starts and minutes, ironically. Delap's not getting mentioned by anybody. That feels right to me at the moment. I couldn't see me going and concluding on anything you said now, Paul, that would make me go, yeah, Delap's going to be the one for me. So he's certain to score now this weekend, Matt. Sorry.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair. I suppose we could have ourselves a a Jota Diaz situation here where you're really hoping that he walks off slowly to get off the pitch and all this kind of stuff. But yeah, I think there'll be times when he is taken off just before that magic 60-minute. But if he's already scored you 2 goals, you're probably not that fussed. But I don't know if he'll score the goals. We do tend to share the goals around as a rule.
If everyone was kind of had a blanket 5.5 price here of your attackers, would Schmodix be the best?
Well, Schmodix is 6, I
Yes,
think. He might have gone down.
No, he's
I
still
think
6
if
at the
everybody
minute.
was 5.5, I think of the attacking players, I think I'd go Delap of those at the minute. I think Hutchinson's due, though. He's playing well. But yeah, I think I'd just go Delap. But they're all probably, equally well priced. They're probably in the right bracket, apart from I think Schmodix is a notch too high.
Yeah, Schmodix, he does feel like that. If he gets on a streak at some point, great, I think. I'm just not quite there at that. Hutchinson's same price as Kevin Schade, who we think at the moment is now going to go and play up front for Brentford for a while. OOP. I don't know if I could make the case for Hutchinson over him, Paul.
No, I guess given that, Visa's out for whatever it is, a couple of months, is it Schade or is it Mbeumo who's going to play number 9? But whichever one, they both look good options now, don't they? With their fixtures turning in a week or two's time. So yeah, I could understand that.
They've got Dr. Tottenham this week, mate. The turn is now, pal.
You said that. I didn't say that.
Talking of fixtures, though, this is particularly for you, Paul. This is a good run, isn't it? Starting with Southampton this weekend. Villa at home, West Ham away, Everton at home, Brentford away, Leicester at home, Tottenham away, United at home, Forest away, Palace at home, Bournemouth at home, Wolves away, Newcastle at home, Christmas.
Yeah.
That's good, mate.
Yeah, and that's what I said at the start. This is where this becomes the real quiz. This is where we've got to pick up our points, because that run of how many games that is, 10, 12, feels like, right, we need to be getting 15, 18, 20 points from those to feel like we can hit the 36, 38 that we will need at the end.
I mean, over that period, you don't play, obviously, City, Liverpool you've played. You don't play Arsenal till after that period. I don't think you play Chelsea till after that period.
No, we play Arsenal and Chelsea straight after Christmas.
Yeah. So you've only got 4 of the so-called big 8 at the moment. Newcastle, United and Villa are all at home. And Newcastle's the last game of that fixture, by the way. The only away one there's Tottenham.
Yeah.
And decided for the attacking assets, as per always. It is a really good... you are perfect for wildcarders, Paul. Particularly, I'll put the Ipswich guy in. Even if I leave it as a sub, I can leave that for a long period. But I don't know if I'm making a case for them attacking players at the moment.
No, I think the attacking players are hard, because what you probably want is you want someone who's guaranteed to, get you 80 to 90 minutes and chip in with goals and assists occasionally. Well, I'm not going to say that any of those are guaranteed for that, because that's not how we play. We do switch around at that 60-minute mark quite a lot. We do freshen it up. And that's a risk for people who want that, bench guy who's guaranteed you 2 points, in case Haaland's poorly this weekend or whatever it is. And I don't think we've got one of those in the attacking areas. We've got 2 or 3 in defence, but not in the midfield and attack, I'm afraid.
Okay. Matt, you've got a couple of home games coming up, which includes this one, that feel huge. Ipswich at home this week, and obviously Leicester at home game week 8. It's a trip to Bournemouth in game week 6. Either side of the Leicester home game, trips to the Emirates and the Etihad. I didn't say it like that intentionally. It's just the way, because I felt it for you when I said it, actually. This is big, isn't it? These next 2, I guess, or particularly this weekend, actually.
Yeah, I mean, the next 3 home games, if you include Everton, for instance, they're massive for the club. But yeah, between that, you've hit the nail on the head. We play Arsenal, City. We've then got Liverpool kind of at home, Villa. I think it's the opposite to Ipswich, in a sense that I think we play that kind of the top 6 from last season. in this spell between now and Christmas. And it's the home games that we're potentially going to have to try and get some points out of. It'll be a struggle, but we're going to have to, starting with this weekend, we're going to have to really up our game, because if we get to November and we're still in the same position, we're in real trouble.
Is this game more important for you this weekend than it is for Ipswich?
Yeah.
Do you agree with that, Paul?
Yeah, it probably is, because, well, without wishing to sound cruel, they haven't got any points yet. They need the points. They're at home. The pressure's on them, I think. Whilst I don't think we would take the draw, a draw away from home isn't awful for us. It probably is a real missed opportunity for Southampton.
Agreed.
Okay. Cut the quick fires to finish off from you. Paul, Jack Clark integration. Do you expect that to happen soon?
Genuinely, I don't know if him or Schmodix will become first choice on that left-hand side. I think that might be a horses for courses position for us. We've had, over the last couple of years, we've had a pretty much a nucleus. We knew our team. And there's always been the odd position where you're like, oh, it's him or him. And that seems that one. So that's also part of my nervousness about Schmodix, is that it could easily be Clark that starts. And it could be this weekend, for instance, given how Southampton play, we might prefer Clark rather than Schmodix, but it does depend how we play.
Okay. Matt, we spent much of our summer discussing your goalkeeper problems. I told you that you must buy one to have a chance of staying up. Has Aaron Ramsdale fixed your problem?
Yeah. I mean, Aaron Ramsdale was a very unexpected fix of our problem, because I didn't see us spending that amount of money on a goalkeeper.
Okay. Quick FPL. Ramsdale or Muric if you had to buy one, Matt?
I'd go Ramsdale.
Paul?
I'd stick with our guy. I'd go for Muric, just for the fixtures.
Okay. Fair enough. I wish you both the very best of luck this weekend. Let's do some predictions then. Correct score prediction for St Mary's Saturday, Matt.
We need the win, so I'm going to go 2-1.
Paul?
I was going to say 2-1 to us.
I think this is a really tough call. I feel like Ipswich are in a better moment. I wonder if there might be something psychological for you, Paul, that you feel like for the first time you're playing someone with respect, Matt, on your level, if you will, in terms of expectation around the table. I don't think even like with Fulham, no one truly expects to be fighting relegation. But it does feel really important for you, Matt. I think I'm going to give you the edge, Matt, but I've not got a lot of science behind that. I think you've probably got, it feels like you've got to win already, a little bit.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. One more prediction from you both. Since I give you that good news, Matt, I'll ask you for some bad news. Predict 3 teams to go down.
Christ almighty. Leicester, I put Everton, so I'll stick by that. As much as Sean didn't like me for it. And
Sean don't like anyone.
No, that's true. In Ipswich, because, yeah.
You don't sound like you believed that on Ipswich when you said it.
No, I mean, I just can't think who would get the other spot. I mean, I don't think Wolves have looked particularly impressive, and I've been impressed by Ipswich. But yeah, I think this season it's a tricky one. Most people will probably have us to go down. But I do think come Christmas, I still don't think it will be as clear cut as it was last season or the season before.
Okay. And Paul, same question.
The start of the season, I had Southampton, Leicester, and Brentford. Brentford seem to have got their mojo back a bit, so I might change that for Everton.
And me. Way to go to piss Sean off. You just knocked his team out of the cup as well, Matt.
Yeah.
Oh, dear. It's interesting. You both think Leicester will go down. I shouldn't be surprised with that prediction. And our Leicester correspondent, Aaron Legor, features on Clash of the Correspondents next week. It will be on Tuesday next week, and it will be with Adam Pritchard, because I know you're all dying to hear about Arsenal assets ahead of game week 6. And next Tuesday, Clash of the Correspondents, Arsenal versus Leicester with Adam and Aaron. Just leaves me to say thank you so much to Matt and to Paul. Good luck, gents. Thank you. Cue music, please. Man child.